guys, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. And Happy New Year! Today, my guest, his name is Phil Choi, and he is joining me from his home. I don't know what I'm trying to say other than thanks for being here, Phil, and giving me your time.
Hey Blair, no, I'm very excited to be here. I'm honored that you asked me, and I'm excited to share my story a little bit to perhaps reach, I guess, your target audience that we were just talking about. It's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, the honor truly is all mine. And I am excited to hear I know kind of like surface things about you, but I'm excited to hear more of your story. And even just right before we started recording, you kind of told me like you lived in Costa Rica for a little bit. I'm like interested to know what that's about. So without further ado, we can get started. Phil, what is it that you do?
Yeah. So what I do on the corporate side is I am a senior strategy consultant and transformation manager for Papa John's International.
Okay, I don't know what you just said. You can. You're a senior
strategy consultant.
Okay.
And exactly what that is, I guess in layman's term, as a senior strategy consultant, I formulate the business long-term strategic plan, which typically means 3 to 5 years out into the future.
Oh, wow.
We analyze and align the industry's emerging trends and study what those trends are and formulate that into our business plans. And I guess in a very succinct way, we ensure that our stock prices continue to go up instead of down. And the easiest way to explain it is we try to beat our competitors. We try to win. And the best way to explain what I do really at Papa John's is as a strategy manager, as a strategy consultant, is ensure that our business is set up for success.
Okay, so my first question is, I mean, it makes sense that any company would have somebody like this, right? Like a strategist for their business. Is that correct?
Yep. I would say most companies, yes. You'd be surprised how many companies don't. Papa John's, in its 40-year history, it's a publicly traded company, has not had a strategy or transformation office in the past. So again, it's a publicly traded company. We report all our numbers to obviously a New York Stock Exchange and to Wall Street. But in the past, they have operated almost like a entrepreneur company. One person's his voice, the former CEO, George Snatner, it was his way or the highway. Now we're finally transforming. We're really emerging into a company that is trying to formulate business models, business thoughts, and really trying to strategize for the future.
I see.
Again, in the past, it's been really his way. Now, under new leadership, we're really trying to kind of emerge into modern technology, into easier business model, so on and so forth.
I see. Okay, so Phil, I'm so sorry. My personality, I'm really an extroverted thinker, so I have to like kind of process out loud. So
No,
pardon, I'm so sorry. So I'm just trying to grasp everything you said. The first thing is like, you said that under the old leadership, he kind of did his own thing. Does that mean he didn't really have like a consulting team? Is that what you're trying to explain to me?
Yeah, so previously the headquarters was in Louisville, Kentucky. And obviously I've never met this man face to face. I've met our new CEO, Rob Lynch, a few times. But the stories I've heard about our former CEO was he would have input, but ultimately he would make the decisions.
I see. Okay.
And he wouldn't necessarily take everyone's advice or everyone's input to heart because he already had his mind made up on whatever decision it is that he wanted to make.
Even if it maybe was not good for the company in the long run.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
And
sorry. Go ahead.
Long story short, that's why he's not CEO anymore.
Got it. But you mentioned that Papa John's is a publicly traded company.
Correct.
Okay.
Meaning that they trade in the New York Stock Exchange.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. I don't judge me. I'm not
No. These are good questions.
ignorant, but I just wanted to be clear on what all of that meant. So, as a senior strategist, you mentioned that you plan for like 3, 4 years in advance, right? In order make sure that your company is ahead of other competitive companies. So, as a senior strategist, what does your day to day look like then?
Yeah, I think that's a tremendous question, Blair. And I'm sure you hear this all the time, but no 2 days are the same for me at Papa John's. Every day is very, very different.
Mm.
To answer part of your question first, as a senior strategist, really we look at current events, current marketplace, what's going on in the market, commodity prices, things like that. We study very, very heavily everything that's going on in the QSR industry. QSR stands for quick service restaurants. We
Okay.
study everything that's going on with labor strategy. So right now, you might notice that a lot of the stores that we go to, Target, Walmart, Kroger, Publix, wherever they may be, they're very short staffed.
Hmm.
And that's very true for the restaurant industry as well. And then we also study M&A potential possibilities. M&A stands for mergers and acquisitions. Um, all that to say, and I'm trying to keep your target market and a target audience in mind. What we really try and do is we try and study everything that's going on in the world, current events wise, so that we don't get left behind. Essentially, we don't want to become
Mm.
a blockbuster
I
where
see.
we were so late to the game and we didn't
Yes.
continue to evolve
My
with.
our listeners probably don't even know what Blockbuster
Oh,
is.
geez. Okay. I guess a better analogy would be we want to be like Amazon. Amazon continues to innovate. Apple continues to innovate. We
Sure,
want to
yeah.
be like Microsoft, Apple, um, like these cool companies that are out there, like Netflix. We don't want to be some of these companies that you might, like your audience, they're probably questioning what the heck is Blockbuster? Like what happened to them? So we want to make sure when your audience's kids are alive that they're still ordering Papa John's and they think of Papa John's as like, oh, that's pizza. Cool. I want to order pizza too.
Interesting. Okay, so now I'm like kind of excited here because it's like, how is Papa John's gonna be innovative? Like, are
No.
you allowed to share maybe some examples of what the future of pizza could look like?
Yeah. That's actually a great, great question. I'm actually glad you asked this. And I had to get approval from my boss and our legal department to share what I can share and what I
You
can't
did?
share, just because there's a lot of NDA type stuff. NDA means uh, like
Non-disclosure
non-discrete.
agreements.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yep. So there's a lot of things that it's so secret, it's so proprietary. Only my team and a certain few others know. Perhaps it's our executive team, our C-suites, or it might be our board of directors. There are a lot of projects that I work on where not all the board members know,
Uh-huh.
only a certain person knows,
Uh-huh.
or it might be projects that only a certain part of our C-suites know. It really just depends on the project. What I can share with you, however, is there's a lot of different projects that are currently ongoing for several years now, where we're looking to market perhaps drone technology as a delivery method. We're looking at easier automatic payments just to make the consumer experience a little bit easier. Perhaps we're looking at artificial intelligence, where if you're thinking that you're hungry and you've always ordered pizza on a Friday, and you always order 2 large pepperonis and 2 large the works, that we just automatically order it for you. And if you don't want it that day, we'll come back and pick it up. We're also looking at machines to make pizza. We're looking at a myriad of other ways to be just creative and innovative. And
Oh
I'll share
yeah.
that.
I saw on your Instagram you were like the vending machine pizza thing.
Yep. So I share a
Oh.
lot on my Instagram, and it's kind of funny because all my friends will like joke, I never watch your Instagram stories. They're always too long. It's always about the news. And it's funny though, because obviously some people do watch it
Yeah,
and I'll
I
get
watch
random comments. Thank you.
them.
Yep. Thank you. I'll get random comments by a lot of my friends like, hey, what you posted the other day, that was awesome. Can you tell me more about it? So Blair, what you're talking about, yeah. Vending machine pizzas are actually already out there in Europe, and internationally, it's not a taboo topic. I think here in the United States, we think of vending machine pizzas, and it's kind of like that sounds weird,
Right.
but it's just different cultures, different different countries embrace different technologies, or they embrace different foods a little bit differently. They're already out there in Europe. They're already in Canada. It's just the United States hasn't embraced it yet, just because we have such an abundance of food options here. I mean, I look
Mm.
around my house, and I have so many different food options here, or I can just simply go to the grocery store or a restaurant. Whereas in other remote areas, especially Africa and Europe, they might only have uh, top, certain types of foods that are available to them. And if they
Mm-hmm.
want pizza, they have to go a long way away. That's why vending machines are so popular there. Here in the United States, we're simply test marketing how popular they would be. And we're thinking
Mm.
hospitals or college campuses, high traffic foot areas where they don't have time to sit down and go to a restaurant to eat. They need something quick. These machines are pretty incredible. I mean, they taste pretty good. So obviously, they're all in Silicon Valley, where all the very smart tech graduates end up. This one in particular was by the guy who started Miso Robotics. Miso Robotics is the one that started a thing called Flippy, and it was embraced by several restaurants already. It essentially makes burgers for you without needing a human to do it. These
Hmm.
robots make it. So it reduces
Crazy.
labor, it improves efficiency. Um, that guy left to start this one, and it's got the backing of a lot of private equity firms and venture capitalists. So we're pretty excited. We're trying to see what we can do with them as an exclusive partner. But obviously, the Domino's and the Little Caesars, they're all pretty excited about this too. So it's kind of like a bidding war. It's kind of like the coolest kid on the block, and everyone wants to be friends with that person. And we're trying to be that cool friend for this one company.
So, like, the company will choose eventually?
Yeah, I mean, because they're private equity backed, essentially, they have a lot of funding from this big company.
Uh huh.
The end game, the end strategy for them is to get acquired by someone else. So that's part of my job where mergers and acquisitions comes into play. The question for us is how quickly can we scale this, and how quickly can they scale all these different machines to the point where we can mass produce these all over, let's say Atlanta or
Uh huh.
Dallas or
Uh-huh.
Los Angeles. That's the question that we have to come to figure out. And obviously, marketing has to come involved, and the HR team has to come involved because there's a labor component to this. And then the government has to come in because we don't want to be that company that puts a bunch of people, working class Americans, out of work. So that's where strategy really comes to play. It's a lot of little puzzles to the piece
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that we're trying to figure out, but we're also trying to do it in a methodical way in which we're not hurting the economy, we're not hurting the environment, and that's really where the vision statements of sustainability comes into play, things like that.
That's insane, man. I mean, I Phil, I really appreciate you even like taking the time to like talk to your company about what you can and cannot share. It means a lot to me. Um, and the drone thing, wait, so like for real though, like I'm like so behind. Like I'm sure if you told David all this, which maybe you
Mhm.
guys already talked about it, he'd be like, yeah, like that's of course. Like of course there's gonna be drones delivery. But for me, I'm like, that's crazy. Like,
No,
but
Blair, I'm kind of like you. I'm a laggard when it comes to like technology and stuff like
right.
that. Like I still have the iPhone 11. I look around, and all my friends have the iPhone 13, and they're like, "Yo, check this out with the camera views and stuff
Right.
like that." I'm still old school, where like all I need my phone to do is can I call people, can I text people, and can I search something on the internet.
Me too.
So
Me too. Yes.
I'm very simplistic in that regard. But yeah, drone technology, and again, this is one of the topics I can't go too much into detail about
Uh-huh.
because it's still under like FAA approval
Okay.
status and whatnot. What I can tell you is Domino's is testing something, and they're testing something more so with ground deliveries,
Okay.
robotic.
I see.
Um, and then Little Caesars came out with hot lockers. Essentially, it keeps your pizza really hot until you pick it up and you punch in this code that they text you. What we decided to do, and this is before I joined the company, was well, Domino's already has a ground game. Little Caesars has, I guess, the home base, if you will. And this is kind of like military strategy. Our
Okay.
thing was, well, let's take the air. And our thinking was, um, it's very difficult to get approval and funding and everything else to go perfectly for ground deliveries through automation. UPS is trying this, Amazon is trying this, so many Apple's kind of trying this also. For us, there's less regulation when it comes to the air FAA regulations,
Mm-hmm,
federal
mm-hmm,
air. I don't even know what they stand for, to be honest with you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the team that we partnered with, they were government contractors that worked with the military, and they had a lot of connections with the FAA already. So we were able to really partner with them and kind of bypass a lot of the more stringent processes
Hmm.
of getting things approved. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to mislead your audience. We have a long way to go. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
we're not going to be seeing something like the Jetsons, and your audience probably doesn't even remember what the Jetsons.
No,
We're
they
not going to
don't.
see drones flying all over the world or all
Right.
over the streets in like the next 2 years. It's going to take some time. There's a lot of things that we need to figure out in
Thank
terms of weight
goodness. I'm not ready
distribution.
for that. I'm not ready for
Oh
that.
yeah, I'm not either. I just don't want to see these drones flying around, and like, what if something happens to our network and like they all start dropping, and our kids are like playing outside or something like that.
Right.
That
Yeah.
stuff kind of scares me. So
Yeah. This is so random, but my have you heard of Paw Patrol? It's like a kids
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Like they have an episode where they're doing drone food deliveries,
Hmm.
and I was like, this is so weird. Like, why would they show this? But then, like, and then they have a malfunction in the drones, and the Paw Patrol has to come help them, right?
Yep.
So, like,
Yeah.
have you
I've actually seen that
you
episode.
have?
It's so funny. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
have a
god,
nephew and
why?
niece. I have a nephew and niece, and
Oh,
I end up watching just the most random shows
right,
sometimes.
right. Me
And
too.
sometimes I'm not even with them. So again, it goes into strategy. I want to learn. I want to be intellectually curious of what
Hmm.
like others are curious about or what they're interested in. So that's part of my job as being in strategy, trying to learn things that other people are interested in or curious about. So when it comes to my nephews and nieces, I can't tell you how many times I've watched random Coco Melon episodes or things like
Right,
that, just
right.
so like in case they ever ask me, I can be like, oh, I like that character, or hey, I like that person.
Interesting.
So
So you are kind of wired that way then. Like you like learning and then being able to like apply what you've learned. I guess that's a normal thing, but it's not normal.
I don't like learning school materials. I don't like learning things that like are mandated. So school, everything's kind of like through the syllabus, like you
Sure.
have to learn X, Y, and Z, chapter 7, 8, and 9, or whatever it
Right,
may be.
right.
But what my friends are interested in, and if it's a topic that I'm not very familiar with, I honestly I'll go home and or maybe even at like a red light. And I don't recommend this to anyone to do this because we shouldn't be texting and driving. But if someone says something that I don't know anything about, I'll make a mental note or I'll type something on my phone, and I'll be at home kind of reading about things. Like Nicole will tell you, the way I think is
Uh-huh.
differently. And sometimes like my friends will say that and I take it like, man, that makes me sound weird. But they're like, no, 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 it's not a weird thing. It's like you just think differently.
I
Um,
see.
I think it's from my time in the military. We just had to learn to think outside the box a lot, to problem solve. Or I think it was because we were always challenged to do things a little bit differently.
Uh-huh.
Um, so when it comes to different subject matters or things that my friends are interested in, I'm always willing to learn or willing to try it. Like skiing with David and KJ
Uh-huh.
and Josh and Sam and Peter. Like I've never been skiing or snowboarding before, but I was curious to try it, and it
Yeah.
was on my bucket list. I was like, as soon as I got that text message, I was like, yeah, let's go. I'm down.
Yeah.
Um, I've never done it, and thankfully they were all so nice to do it. But I kind of figured out. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize I was on the bunny slopes for so long, but I kept like listening in on the lessons that the instructors were giving to like the little kids.
That's awesome, man.
So like the instructors were like, "Hey, don't forget the pizza." Oh, it's
Yes,
so
the
ironic that we're
pizza.
talking
That's
about Papa
right.
John's. But I was like, okay, let me try that next. And then they're like, hey, use the blades of the sides of your skis. And I was like, okay. But I felt really cheap because I didn't realize they were supposed to pay for those
No, man,
tutors or
that's
the
so
trainers.
smart. That's so wise.
So I was like, okay, let me try that next. But it goes all back to like just being curious and being just like interested in stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure, man. Man, I love all of that. I mean, Nicole, for those of you that don't know, Nicole is my friend and Phil's girlfriend. Um,
Hmm.
but what I was gonna say is, I think I've heard bits and pieces of what Nicole tells me, what even David told me through your time on the trip together. Yeah, you seem like a thinker that thinks a little differently. And I kept telling David and Nicole, like, man, we need more guys like him because, like, for real. But then it makes sense too, like the whole strategy thing, like thinking for the future, finding the best and efficient way
Mm-hmm.
possible to make things
Mm-hmm.
work makes complete sense. And I want to go back to like even your time in the military, but before we jump into that part of your life, so how can you take me back to like high school, like maybe your senior year?
Yeah.
I don't know, like, after high school, you kind of have to start deciding what you're going to do with your future. What did that look
Mm-hmm.
like for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Alpharetta, Georgia. I went to Centennial High School. We didn't have class rankings, or maybe I was so like average that like, my class ranking didn't matter. But I was in all AP honors and like high level courses. And up until my junior year, my parents were pushing me to go to your Harvards and your Dukes. Duke is where my dad went. So
Mm.
very much so, probably like your youth group students, if they're first generation Koreans Americans, to go to the best Ivy League school if possible. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't have the grades to do that, so I ended up going on an ROTC scholarship, and I knew that was the path that I was going to make. And it was also a promise I made to my mom after 9/11. And again, I'm trying to keep your audience in mind. Maybe some of your youth group students are too young to even know what September 11th meant for our country and for me personally. But if we're thinking about your more college graduate students, perhaps maybe they're old enough to know what 9/11 was.
I
But
mean, in high school, I'm sure they're learning about 9/11 in their history books now. So,
yeah, yeah. So during 9/11, I was in seventh grade in advanced math, and I just remember. Do you remember back in middle school when you and I were like in middle school, not when electronics was a big thing? When we had a
yeah.
substitute teacher,
And then
we
we
had to
had to
walk.
like, the TVs were on that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So we had a substitute teacher, and she was taking attendance, and then everyone wanted to get out of class, so we raised our hands, and we had
Yeah.
to walk the attendance slip to the front office.
Mm-hmm.
So I got selected, and I just remember no one was paying attention to me, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"What is going on?" And
Mm-hmm.
they were all crying. Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Me too.
Um, and it was just this eerie feeling because you know I knew something was wrong just based on their reaction and their lack of attention to all the students who were there trying to turn in their attendance slips. And again, for the students who don't know what an attendance slip is, we didn't have electronics back then. So we had to write everything with pen and paper. But finally, someone paid attention to me, and then we just heard the scream, and we saw that second plane hit that tower.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh.
then, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps too, Blair. And that's kind of when I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
A little bit more background story. Both my grandparents were in the military. My grandfather on my dad's side served in the U.S. Army. He was an
Your
officer.
grandfather on your dad's side.
Hmm.
Okay. So
And
the
then,
U.S. military.
correct. And then my grandfather on my mom's side was an admiral in the Korean Navy. So both
So was
high-ranking
mine.
military officers. Oh wow, maybe we're related because you're from California too.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, did your grandparents immigrate to California?
My American, or sorry, my dad's grandpa immigrated to Georgia after the Korean War. My
Oh,
mom's
okay.
side of the family all stayed in Korea, but he was really high ranking. And I think that's where I got my passion to want to serve in the military.
I see.
Someone had to carry on that tradition.
I see. I see.
And I knew
Because
my
since
uncle and
uh-huh.
yeah, I just knew like my uncle and my dad didn't do it and my cousins weren't going to do it. And to me, it was just something really cool. Um, and yeah, I kind of wanted to do it too.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if our grandparents know each other.
I'm kind of curious about that too. So unfortunately, they're not here anymore. But I'm
Yeah.
sure I can ask them because I mean, how many admirals were there in the Korean Navy, right?
That's insane. I'm so like in shock right now because I'm pretty sure they've got to know each other. But anyways, sorry guys, but okay. Sidebar. But so during 9/11, all you went to turn in the attendance slips and you wanted to
Hmm.
give me the history of your grandparents and how far the history goes. But going back to 9/11, what did that mean for you?
Yeah. So growing up, I kind of had an identity crisis. I knew I was Korean. I knew I was American. All my friends played baseball and football. I played baseball and football. When we got attacked on 9/11, I just knew that US was also home for me. So I'm very proud to be a Korean American.
Mm.
So I made a promise to my mom as we were watching the news clips over and over and over that day that I would serve in the US military also. And looking back at it, now that a lot of our friends have kids, what's that thing when 1-year-old Korean babies have to choose like they choose money or they choose a book
Your
or they choose
toy.
whatever?
Your
Told.
toy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. My mom told me that's funny because during your toll, you chose like the I chose something military. I don't know what the exact
Oh,
item was.
interesting.
So my mom kind of shared that story with me. I made her a promise that day that I would serve in our military. And going back to your original question, back to high school, senior year of high school, I was getting accepted to different colleges, but I knew I wanted to join the military at some point by way of ROTC.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted to accept the ROTC scholarship. I got a few scholarships here and there. Ultimately, I got the one that I wanted, which was a former military college. And as you probably know, Blair, I'm very passionate, very loud Clemson fan. So that's kind of where I ended up in
It's all
college.
right. No, I'm just kidding. Go
Hey, I also want to
dogs.
give a quick shout out to all you Georgia fans and congratulations. Good luck on
Thanks,
January
man.
10th.
But let's I'm just trying not to think about too much, but it's okay. But okay, so you got your scholarship to Clemson.
Hmm.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Hmm.
Okay, so okay, actually I have a question about that. An ROTC scholarship, what does that require of you once you enter college?
Yeah. So it requires a specific physical expectation is the right term. You are mandated and required to pass certain physical tests.
Mm-hmm.
You are required to pass and maintain a certain level of courses.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have to take a lot of military courses.
Okay.
So at Clemson, my freshman year, I had to take a lot of business courses. And then my sophomore, junior years, I had to take a lot of military leadership courses also.
Oh, wow. What was your majoring at school?
Yeah, so I actually went to Clemson undecided. I ended up um, majoring in health science with a concentration in health service administration. This
Oh,
is before Obamacare and all that stuff. So I thought I wanted to work in healthcare.
cool.
And then obviously Obamacare made things a little bit more complicated in terms of health insurance and whatnot. So obviously I don't do anything in health insurance or health administration right now. But yeah, my minors were in business leadership and military leadership.
Cool. Man, you're just full of surprises, Phil. I like this because I've been meaning to get to know you better just because, you're Nicole's boyfriend. And so I am so excited to hear all these new things. But okay, all that to say, you graduate from Clemson, and then I'm assuming with your ROTC obligations or commitment, if you want to call it, what does that mean after you graduate?
Yeah, great question. And I'll try and answer it very simply. After you commission into the United States Army by way of ROTC, you have an 8-year obligation. You have to give 8 years back for all of the money that they spent on my education. So I went to Clemson for free, essentially, but I had to pay 8 years of my life back. So the route I took was 4 years of active duty and 4 years of reserve time.
Oh, okay. So you kind of split it up.
Correct. And that's the way most people do it,
I see.
unless they truly love the military. And some people will do all 8 years in the active force.
Yeah, that does seem like overwhelming for me. Like just
Hmm.
8 years of active duty. But okay. So you graduate, and then what's the process? What
Yep.
happens?
So we have to go through our own form of basic training. And mind you, Blair, I was not this huge chiseled kid that I am now. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
obviously kidding because obviously it's a podcast
No,
because no
no.
one can see us.
You're
But when I was a freshman in college, I was very small, very skinny, very scrawny. But because of ROTC, because of high school football, it made me mentally tough. And finally, I started hitting the gym. All that to share, I went through our version of basic training. And that's really when I got I guess, serious about my fitness. Started running better, started running harder, and then started hitting the weight gym a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I ended up at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I did my BOLIC, which stands for Basic Officer Leadership Course. And then from there, I went to my first duty station, and then that really led me to all around the world, to include Fort Meade, Fort Lewis, where else? Fort McCoy, uh, just just everywhere. Fort Bragg. I've been to way too many places.
Mm.
With one overseas deployment to Afghanistan, in support of Operation Freedom Sentinel, where I was stationed in Bagram, Afghanistan.
Well, thank you for your service, Phil. Truly.
I
I like
appreciate that.
have a soft heart for people in the military. But uh I guess what I am really curious about is I think I have like I don't actually know what it means to be in the army. I
Hmm.
think I like have a picture of it or image of what I think it should look like or even what the television tells me it should look like. But after you complete your training, which by the way, after if you're an ROTC, like do you graduate with any sort of like ranking at all?
Yeah, so we graduate as officers, so second lieutenants,
Okay.
uh, gold bars essentially.
I don't know what that means. Can you tell me what that means?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's second lieutenant. The rank is 2 gold bars.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. And then
So
what's the
essentially,
what's the what's the order? Can you tell me the
yep. So it
order?
goes from second lieutenant to
Uh-huh.
first lieutenant
Uh-huh.
to captain, which is what I got out of. And then the trajectory to get from second lieutenant to first lieutenant is probably about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
First lieutenant to captain is about another 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe 3 years, 3 to 4 years, depending on each one, depending on how good you are, I suppose. From captain, you become a major, but to get from captain to major takes a long, long time.
I see.
And then from there, you become a colonel.
I see. Oh, wow. Cool.
Hmm.
You became a captain?
Yeah, yeah. But all my peers were captains also. Like if they graduated 2012,
Uh-huh.
I want to say a majority of them became captains
I
also.
see.
So it's
I
not
see.
like anything special.
It is to me, but okay, yes, I believe you. I believe you. But okay. So all that to say, like what does it look like to be in the army? I know that's like a really general question. I don't know how else to ask it.
Yeah. So for me, it really depended on my duty station and what
Okay.
my jobs, roles, and responsibilities were. But on a typical day, you wake up at 05:30, to use military time, which of course in civilian time is also 5:30. You wake up, you do PT, physical training, which depending on the group that you're with or depending on the unit you're with, it just varies. So if you're in an airborne unit, you do a lot of running. If you're in just a regular stateside mobilization or deployment, it might mean more weight training. Um, when we were in Afghanistan, it meant a lot of running because that's all we could do.
Mm.
Long story short, you wake up at 5:30, you work out, you run, you have a little bit of downtime to shower, personal hygiene, things like that. My first meeting was typically at about 07:30. Because I was an officer, I was always in commander's update briefings, Cubs,
Mm.
or battalion update briefings, or depending on the unit again, brigade update briefings, which would typically give us some sort of scenario planning or some sort of, I guess, agenda for the day. Blair, you're doing this. David, you're doing X, Y, and Z. Philip Choi, you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we got our task or to-do list, if you will. And then from there, it was just a lot of meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to be an officer that looked out after my soldiers. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but I would always go around after my meetings just to see how my soldiers were doing. Hey, how's the family? Did you watch the game last night? Like, yo, what'd you think of Kobe or what'd you think of LeBron or whatever? Just shoot the crap with the soldiers.
Mm.
Just have fun with them. Let them know that you're human also. There's a divide between officers and enlisted soldiers where typically officers only hang out with officers and enlisted only hang out with enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
I try to never be that way. I want to be with my soldiers regardless of rank.
Mm.
Obviously the respect factor is always there, but to always be accessible to them, have an open door policy. It's incredible how many personal issues some of these soldiers are going through,
Mm.
and they just don't open up. But long story short, That was what my typical day looked like. After all my meetings, let's say it's 16, 17, 1800, I'd wind down. We'd all go to MWR. That's morale, welfare, and recreation. Watch a movie. A lot of them played video games. Me and my buddies, we would go play basketball, play volleyball, just hang out, just wind down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There were times when sometimes every 2 weeks where we would have to provide night guard or fire shift or something like that. And that just means we have to stay up later than everyone else and just take turns making sure like the bad guys or the enemies don't come creeping up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just stuff like that. That was like a typical day, but no day in the military is the same either. It's as structured as the military is. Every day was very different, and there's always some sort of fire drill.
So, your commitment to joining the military and, just what we experienced during 9/11, all those things, did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I look back and like, I'm trying to be very careful because I know Nicole will listen to this. I miss the guys in my unit a lot. I still talk to them, text them every day. I still get messages from them almost every day also. I miss the camaraderie that the military brings. I was very close with my unit. I was very close with my soldiers. We still talk almost every day.
Wow.
I miss that kind of bond all the time. And I'm not saying I don't have it now. I have plenty of friends here that I see probably too much, but I do miss serving. And there's a part of me that I want to give back. I want to continue to serve. My last assignment was to study the South China Sea, which is obviously a big geopolitical issue right now. But I don't want to get too much into that. That I think I can still give back to the Army if they needed my services. But I will say that I had aspirations in life that I really want to hit, perhaps have a family. I've missed far too many weddings, baby showers, and birthdays when I was in the military. So that was the main reason that I got out. And I want to really advance in my civilian career. So that's very, very important to me. So that's the reason I got out. But there is like kind of something missing in my heart where I want to give back. I want to continue to serve. Whether my body will allow me to, I don't know. In my head, I think I can still do it. And that's why on my Instagram, where sometimes you'll see me do these like really random, like David Goggins type challenges and stuff like that. But I think my body's slowing down just a little bit. But I do miss the Army a lot, mostly because of the people.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so why, maybe it's different, but like, I hear guys that have enlisted and stuff, and then they come out and like, they have like, or they tell like really terrible stories of their experience in the Army. Why is that? Do you know?
No, everyone has their own story. I don't want to speak for them, but I know speaking for myself, I had great leadership top down. I had great NCOs that I got to work with. And I had great mentors who really took me under their wings and helped me develop as a man, as a leader, even as a Christian in some sense. And I was just blessed to really have really good teammates throughout my military career. Now, don't get me wrong. There were days where things weren't all sunny and rosy and all perfect. There were days where we had to hit a deadline, and there were times where the enemy was shooting mortar attacks on us, and we were bunkered down the entire time when we were in Afghanistan, and C-rams were going off left and right, and we couldn't get any sleep and things like that. But to answer your question, I hear stories of soldiers who did not have a great military experience, quite a bit also. And every time I do hear stuff like that, my heart breaks, because the greatest recruiting tool for the United States military are the people, are the soldiers.
Right.
And when the soldiers don't have a great experience, they're telling that to other people also. I try and be the opposite, where very genuinely and from the bottom of my heart, I had a great experience, and I want to share that to other people. And I hope they give the military a chance, because it's provided so many opportunities for me. It gave me a free education, bachelor's of science, and a master's degree. And it's opened the doors to meeting great people. It's allowed me to travel the world. It's allowed me to go to so many different places. And most importantly, it's kind of led me to to this job that I'm at right now, which is like
Yeah.
kind of the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah,
And
sorry. I got I got
no, no, no,
carried
no.
away.
I loved my time in the military.
Mm,
And I don't know why they didn't have one, but I know for me, speaking for myself only, of course, I was just very lucky, very blessed, I think.
yeah. I'm definitely going to get back to the podcast topic, but if you don't mind me asking one more question
No,
about your
of course.
military
I'm an open book.
experience.
I'm an open book on
Thanks
what I
for
can share without going into TS type stuff.
No, I appreciate it because, I have had people reach out to me, and I think I mentioned it to you before about like being interested in joining the military and if I would have somebody on that had experience. But I know people, but they're currently in active duty, so they did not feel
Hmm.
comfortable coming on and sharing their time.
Hmm.
But all that to say, during your time in Afghanistan, you mentioned, there were times where, yeah, their enemy was at bay and you were right there just trying to do your best to what I'm assuming is stay alive. Um, what what
Yeah.
what is that experience like? Like, I mean, I would imagine even your unit too, like I'm sure that would bring you guys closer together. You guys are doing this together and making sure each other stays alive. But like emotionally, physically, um, yeah, can you take me there a little bit?
Yeah. So I completely understand why some of your active duty friends can't go into specifics. I'm trying to be very careful what I can share also. But
Yes.
my role in the military was a public affairs officer. So everything that I know was already out in the public,
I see.
essentially. Hence the name public affairs. It's already out in the public. So to answer your question, yeah, when I was in Afghanistan, there were times when we would get a lot of mortar attacks, but I don't want to mislead your audience by any means. I went to Afghanistan in 2016 in support of Operation Freedom Sentinel. By
Okay.
this time, this is when President Obama was our commander in chief. We had no missions outside the wire. Everything was TAA. So to explain that a little further, TAA means train, advise, assist. Our mission was to hand everything over to the local populace and to the Afghan militaries, Afghan local police officers, and the Afghan National Security Force and our NATO allies. The U.S. was trying to draw back. We were trying to pull out at the time. Obviously,
You said
if you guys follow current
2016?
events, 2016.
Okay.
That was a very, very long time ago, and we just recently pulled out. So, without getting into politics again, everything was kind of messed up at that time, and we had no missions outside the wire. So
Okay.
essentially, to use an analogy that your audience would understand, if we're all playing tag and someone, let's say, tags us inside a certain radius,
Mm-hmm.
we can't go tag them if they go outside that radius.
I see.
So if they ran back outside that radius, we had no choice because of our regulations in place. We cannot go chase them or we cannot go tag them, quote unquote, outside. So we were essentially kind of bunkered down in Bagram. And if you think of Bagram, it's this long, long runway. I'm trying to paint this picture for your
Mm-hmm.
audience. Long runway, think Hartsfield, that's surrounded by mountains on three sides. So it's very, very beautiful. I think people have this misconception that Afghanistan is like just ugly and all deserts and stuff like that. And I mean, there are parts of it that are like that, but there are certain parts of Afghanistan that's absolutely beautiful. So
Mm.
if you've ever been to Denver or Salt Lake City, that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
Oh, wow.
Snow-capped mountains, very white, pristine mountains that just like scale up a lot, and then this like empty runway with a lot of different like military stuff around it. So to paint a picture, that's what Bagram looks like.
Wow.
We were stuck there for about 9 months. And I use the term stuck kind of loosely. My mission, I got to go to Kandahar, I got to go to Fob Banti, Fob Gentry, some other places. But to answer your question, after painting this picture, what we did there was essentially train and try to give them the confidence and the equipment necessary to patrol their own people and to win their own war. We were trying to do that.
Mm.
Again, that was 2016.
Mm.
We see what's happened
Yeah.
this past year. I know we
Yeah.
just turned the calendar year to 2022. Everything that happened in 2021. I won't go into too many details, and I don't want to get in trouble by saying something perhaps that I shouldn't. But that's kind of what we did there.
I see. I see. Wow. Okay, I shouldn't say anything either then.
No, no, no. Yeah, I'll tell you when I can't answer anything.
No, no, no. Thank you for sharing that, Phil. I really, again, really appreciate it and your transparency. So after you leave active duty and you go to the reserves, what does
Hmm.
the reserves look like?
Yeah. So the reserves, Blair, this is such a good question. I think this is very important for your audience, especially those who want to join the military, especially the reserve component need to
Mm,
hear. Me personally, I had a very hard time balancing everything. I had a civilian job. I was working at Home Depot at the time as an account executive, and then I moved over to a new job. All the meanwhile, I was trying to balance time with friends and family. I was trying to balance, my own personal social life. I was trying to balance my military duties at the same time. The thing that most people don't understand with the reserve component, if you're an officer and if you're a high-ranking NCO, is you have to do everything that the active duty does on your own time with one battle assembly or one weekend, essentially. So all the paperwork and all the administrative stuff that active duty has essentially 30 days to do at any point in time, I had to figure out a way to do that for my unit in one weekend's time or on their own personal time. We also have to consider that not all these soldiers are extremely well off or that they
mm,
don't have the resources. So sometimes they don't have a computer, or sometimes they don't have the security clearance, or sometimes they don't have the network capabilities to log on to some of these top secret or TS sites that we need to get into. So it's a hodgepodge of trying to get very creative, trying to figure out a way to problem solve to ensure that we accomplish the mission. But I found it very difficult to balance everything because, again, the reason that I got out of active duty or that I got out of the army was spend time with family, make it to these events that I kept missing because of the army. I found myself still missing these events.
mm.
I just had a very difficult time. And Blair, you know me, I have a very hard time saying no to anyone. If I have the capacity, if I have the fortitude to do it, if someone needs help with something, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say, uh, yes, I can help you, or I'm going to attend that event. And that's something that I really struggled with because I was just burnt out at work and I was burnt out with the military and I wasn't the best friend. I wasn't the best brother. I was just doing everything kind of halfway and I wasn't doing everything at 100%. And
Mm,
it was just weighing on me.
mm. Wow, that's interesting. That I just assumed the reserves like it would just be easier, but
I did too. I thought it'd be like just easy going. It's just 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the
right.
year. But it was so much harder for me. And again, maybe it was me personally, just
Sure,
because
sure.
as an officer,
Right,
you're in
right.
charge of like this 30-man unit and so on and
That's
so forth.
crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, being at the top is not an easy thing. It's also a very
Hmm.
lonely thing, but that's another conversation. But anyways, um okay, so like, you mentioned you're working at Home Depot as an
Hmm.
account executive. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yep.
Like so you've kind of always been in this business world, it sounds like working with
Yeah.
numbers and things like that.
I'll be the first to admit I'm not a strong numbers person. I'm not a quantitative person.
Okay.
I much prefer presenting and doing the due diligence and research behind things and really creating the story behind things. So I worked at the Home Depot by way of an acquisition. Home Depot bought a company called Interline Brands. And then that's how I worked at the Home Depot. And I've always
Oh,
had this fascination with Atlanta-based headquarters. So
okay.
Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, Delta,
Home
obviously Papa
Depot.
John's now, Home Depot, like anything Atlanta, I'm very passionate about. Some of my friends were giving me a hard time. Nicole was giving me a hard time about my tattoo that has like Georgia on it. And they were saying like Phil is an ambassador for Atlanta. And I mean, they're not wrong. I love the city. Anytime my college buddies and I get together, I'm always trying to one up them in whatever state they're from
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I'm just very passionate about our
I
state.
love it.
I love Georgia. I love Atlanta. I think we've got low income taxes. We've got great schools, beautiful houses, good bang for your buck. We have four seasons. We're only a few hours away from the beach, from the mountains. I just love everything about Atlanta except for our traffic.
Holy crap, I
So
thought I loved Atlanta, but you really
hey, we
Y'all
got to
come
represent
move
the
to
A.
Atlanta, okay? It's the place to be. Phil says so.
Let's go. Hey, we won the World Series. UGA's
There
about
you
to win the
go. There
national
you go.
championship. Hey, we got
Please,
this.
Lord,
Let's go.
please, God. But uh, what were they saying? Oh yes. Okay. So, but what I want to know is then like with all of that and being in the reserves and the military and all these things, like how did you? I mean, have you always been in strategy? I know right before this you were at UPS, right? Before
Yeah,
Papa
yeah.
John's.
So this is actually a perfect segue, and I'm actually really glad that you asked me everything about the military because it perfectly segues to the next chapter of my life, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in the reserve, I still got caught up to active duty missions quite a few times. So
Oh.
after Afghanistan, I came back, I went into the reserve, and then I got asked to join the special mission. And this is when President Trump was in office as our commander in chief, and we thought we were going to go to war with North Korea. This is 2018 timeframe, if you
Yes,
remember
I
everything that
remember.
was going on there. So geopolitically, everything was going on, and yeah, we thought North Korea was the thing to do, or the next frontier, the next war. And we were already in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, parts of different other places. But we had to start getting ready for North Korea because they had all these nuclear attacks, and Kim Jong Un was doing things and saying things, and he was kind of being provocative towards Taiwan and South Korea and Japan. And essentially, to summarize, we had to get ready for what we thought was a war with North Korea. So I got called up for a special mission at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. Wisconsin obviously is very cold weather. The terrain is what we thought would emulate North Korean terrain also, or South Korean terrain, or Taiwan terrain, or things like that. So my mission there was to train Army Reserve soldiers I'm trying to be very careful with my words, train them with the equipment that they would use and the ammunition that they would use if we were to go to war with North Korea. I'm trying not to use a three-letter word just in case you don't want me to use it. That like makes it sound like pew pew pew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can use that word, but
Okay.
you're talking about a gun?
Yeah.
Okay. No, my my face and like I'm just so like amazed by the situation. Okay. Before we get back into what we're supposed to be talking about, the reason I'm like so into this conversation right now is because anyone that really knows me, I am actually like very American, and I love America, and I love the military. I love organized things that
Mm-hmm.
have a goal, and like it's just like there's so much passion behind it. That's why I like, team sports, and like I love the
Yeah.
military and like things like that. And so right, and like I love when it's like efficient, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I love when things are planned and then you're actively doing something about it to reach a goal. So like this what you're talking about, I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
I'm making it sound really cool, but like all my buddies, if they listen to this, they're gonna be like, dude, everyone's gonna think like X, Y, and Z, but really, you didn't do anything. And they're gonna give me such a hard time. But
Okay, so
that's just the way guys are, we
okay,
always
but
give each other a hard time.
all that to say, your time in Wisconsin was kind of like you're saying is a good segue, right? To like
Yes.
being a strategist. So after that time, like we didn't go to war.
Hmm.
But how long were you in Wisconsin?
I was there for about 6 months, and then
That's
I
a
got
long
caught up
time.
to Fort Meade and
So
then
you
the
just have to drop
Pentagon.
everything?
Well, yes and no. They gave me a heads up. So I got caught up by one of my mentors in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So essentially, to use a football analogy that you might understand, when Kirby Smart got the UGA job, he wanted to bring in his own coaches, his own staff, right?
Right,
Because he
right.
trusts them and they know him, he knows them. Same thing in the military. When a commander gets appointed a position, he's going to bring in his own staff, someone they trust, someone he or she really can depend on. And the same thing happened for Operation Cold Steel 2. That's the mission that we're on.
Oh.
Operation Cold Steel 2 was the largest Army Reserve gunfire exercise in the U.S. Army Reserve history, and they need a HAC commander. So my commander hired someone, and that person he hired asked me to come aboard because he trusted me, and I was made the HHC commander. And that's really where I kind of learned a lot of strategy, how to think ahead, how to think succession planning, just everything that kind of goes along with strategy from a military side.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess we did, and I'm trying to not sound like very cocky, but trying to sound very humble, but we did a good job. We got a lot of recognition, and I got called up to Fort Meade, Maryland, where I went to PAQC, Public Affairs Qualification course.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, we got a little bit of experience at the Pentagon.
Ooh.
And for those who don't know, Pentagon is the ultimate military strategy think tank, or military, I guess, headquarters, if you will. As a captain, I was very, very low, even though I was a military officer. But it was such a tremendous learning opportunity, and I just try to absorb everything. And that's really where I got my experience thinking about the South China Sea, thinking about how to say things, what not to say, things like that.
Wow. So, just to reiterate, what you're saying is, you mentioned like you guys did a good job, right? And are you saying that because of your ability to kind of think ahead and plan and strategize is what helped get you to where you eventually ended up, like places like the Pentagon?
Yeah. So just for clarification, I don't think I did a good job. I think my team did a phenomenal job.
Oh, Phil, come
I
on.
don't want to take the credit. It was all them. I wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful without them. But to answer your original question, I do think the lessons that we've learned from Operation Cold Seal 2 helped us tremendously to ensure that we were ready to fight tonight in case we had to go to war with North Korea. And that helped tremendously in our future planning for future military state of wars and military strategy thinking. Yes, correct.
Amazing. Okay. So all of your experience really is not from school, it's from the military.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. And I was doing a little bit of studying for this podcast before. I listened to some of the other podcasts, and you've had some amazing
I have,
guests in
yeah.
the past. I hope I can just live up to half their excitement and half their interest. I think general consensus that I've heard from a lot of them, and I was listening to David's also, was I don't know how much I retained from school.
Mm,
College taught me how to think and where to
mhm.
find resources. I can't retain or remember, what I learned in biology 103 or
Right, right.
health service administration 501, and anything like that. Like maybe I remember a teacher, or I remember a lot of my classmates, loved the people at college. I can't remember the specifics, but college taught me how to think.
Mm,
The experiences that I've gotten from my job and then from the military have led me to where I am today. And by
mhm.
no means am I saying I did everything right. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, some worse than others, but thankfully nothing too catastrophic. But I like to think, and I'm always a half glass full kind of guy. It's led me to where I am at right now.
Mm.
And so I don't regret them, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. That's awesome. Um, so your current job as a senior strategist at Papa John's, is there anything that, or what do you like the least about your job?
I don't know if there's anything I don't like. I love what I do, and Nicole and I were kind of joking about this. I was asking her in the car to ask me really tough questions, and
Uh-huh.
then she asked me this question,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Yeah, there's nothing I don't like. The only thing, if I had to share something, just for the sake of answering, there are times where I have to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Ugh.
So usually there's something pressing or a deadline coming up, or the board of directors really want to get an update on a certain project, and we just don't have all the information. So there's a scramble to get things done. There's a sprint that we need to get done. That's the only thing I would dislike.
Mm-hmm.
But even in those hardworking hours and hardworking days and nights, sometimes there's something fun about it too, because I think there's a challenge, and again, to think a little bit differently. there's a beauty in things that are not easy. One of the quotes that I've always heard from one of my mentors is, if it was easy, then everyone would do it. And I've always kind of embraced that. If it was easy, then everyone would jump on the project. But most times people shy away from very difficult things.
Mm.
So yeah, to answer your question, the only thing I don't like is how difficult some of the hours are sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Something that came to mind as you were saying that answer was I should have asked you this at the top of the interview, but it slipped my mind. Like, could you take me through like a typical, I don't know, like process of strategy? Like, because so say there's like I mean, I guess you told me that the goal is always similar, right? Like you want to find the best way to be the best
Hmm.
and ahead of everybody else. But like
Correct.
where did like so let's take the drone project for example. Like
Hmm.
where did that like uh come from? Like how did it come to fruition? Like where did it start? Someone had an idea and then you just start talking about it or
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I don't know exactly how it happened at Papa John's, but
uh-huh.
I know there were synergies coming down from our board of directors,
Uh-huh.
which of course um, they get reported from our C-suites, our senior level executives. So Rob Lynch, our CEO, and Marvin Boyaki, our chief diversity officer, and Max Wetzel, our chief marketing officer. They already had that in their mind. Our strategy team was already thinking about it because our competitors were doing it. And we saw so many others trying to look into the foray and look into the future of what drone deliveries would look like. To answer your question, how did it come about? It's something that we were all discussing. Who came up with the idea first? I'm not entirely sure. But anything in strategy, if we have a new idea, it might be coming from the top down, or it might be coming from our team. We do our due diligence, we do our research, we do our market analysis, and then we send it up to our C suites, to our
Mhm.
chief people officers. And then from there, if they like the idea, they would report it up to the board of directors. So
I
really,
see.
our
Okay,
job is
okay.
really a lot of synergies between senior level executives, thinking what they're thinking, understanding what they want to do in the future, and how do we go about executing whatever that is.
Got it. And so your job really is to take the ideas, see if it's possible, do the due diligence, the research, and then report back, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yep.
Awesome.
And then
Okay.
communicate that down all the way down to everyone in the business unit level,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
or communicate that out, or help coach communicate that out to external players also.
Oh, cool. This is cool. Do you happen to know your Myers Briggs personality test?
Yeah, it's ENTJ, I want to say.
ENT. Oh, that seems spot on. That seems right on. Like, because I really like Myers Briggs, but that seems
Hmm.
pretty spot on for your job.
It's funny that you asked that. We were just talking about Myers Briggs personality test today.
Oh, really?
And yeah, everyone on our team is E. We have to be E's because we present so much
Uh huh.
to different teams and to our senior level executives. I'm not saying introverted people can't present,
Oh, yes, I
but
know. Hmm.
there's just so much conversation that has to take place naturally and enthusiastically with them. So yeah, I think everyone on our team is definitely an E.
Uh huh.
Uh, my boss, who's a former McKinsey guy, very vocal about being ENFJ, I want to say he is.
ENFJ.
So yeah, but you'll
Very
find that
cool.
McKinsey people are very proud of whatever they are.
Yeah.
They're so proud about everything.
That's funny. Okay, so I asked you what you like least. What do you like most about what you do?
Yeah, I love this question actually. So let me take a quick second to think about this. What I love most about my job, it's very exciting as a strategy consultant to be able to map out the company's future 3 to 5 years out. And what that
Mm,
means in this changing environment with so much changing technology and geopolitics coming into play almost on a daily basis, there's a true challenge to that, but that's a lot of fun.
mm,
What's exciting to me and what I like most about it at Papa John's is in this company's about 40-year history, they've never had a strategy or transformation office. So we're really, and my team of Rob, Andrew, and I, we're really setting, I guess, a trailblazing path to new processes and new innovative way of thinking and new processes really. And people come up to us and we get complimented quite a bit on, wow, I can't believe we've never done this in the past. And to
Mm,
us, we think it's just ludicrous that they've never had a process in the past, just because it's Papa John's. It's a fairly big company.
yeah.
Um, so the fact that we get to set the way, the tone, the cadence, and really the process of essentially everything from supply chain to the way our meetings are run to succession planning, anything HR, marketing, finance related. We're just kind of rewriting the entire playbook. So there's something really fun about that right now.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Um, Not for me personally, but it's but it sounds like something a lot of people would enjoy. That's really cool. Um, well, we're coming up on our hour together, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, Phil, but I usually end my conversations with people with any advice. Like, do you have any advice for somebody that maybe is listening right now and maybe has never heard of this job before, or any life advice at all, or both?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I can probably teach a PhD level course on what not to do in life just because I
Yeah.
made so many mistakes in life. So I just want to preface by saying, by no ways did I do everything right in life.
Mm,
But um, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think if I had to do life over again, I would change anything because I'm very happy, very blessed where I'm at today. Um, all that to say, I guess if I had to give advice, I get, I'm thinking back to the students that I'm fortunate enough to mentor at Emory and UGA, and the biggest advice I always tell these students is to be intellectually curious, to read
mm,
daily, and just if you disagree with something or someone, take a step back and don't try and correct that person. Just try and put yourself in their shoes to try and understand why they think the way they do. And again, I'm not trying to get political, but the best case in point is how divided our country is right now. And
mm,
everywhere I see people just continue to attack each other on things that, quite frankly, aren't necessarily important in our everyday lives. I get it if you're very passionate about it, but what I tell these guys is if you're able to read things from the other side, or if you're able to just be curious about why they are passionate about this way or that way, it helps us kind of meet in the middle a little bit more. And in a time when our country is so divided, I think that's something that we're sorely missing.
mm.
So my first piece of advice would be just listen more, be intellectually curious, and just try and be more understanding. Um, to piggyback off some of the conversations that you and I were having about the United States military and how passionate you are about being an American and stuff like that, by no means am I an advocate saying that we are the best country. I'll be the first to admit that there is a lot that our country and the people of the United States need to fix first. But I truly believe that we are a country that stands for good morals and freedom. Um, and that's the reason I joined the military in the first place. Everything that this country has given back to me and to my family, I'm very passionate about that. I will not waver in thinking that what this country stands for is truly for good. That there's a reason why so many people are immigrating into the United States as opposed to leaving. Despite what the media might be saying, despite what all the nasty headlines are saying, people are immigrating into the United States in search of a better life. And to tie this back into the purpose of your podcast, which I love the mission of what you're trying to do to give an avenue to your students of what opportunities are out there. If you put the hard work in there and you do things right, I think you can make it in this country. I don't think. I know you will make it in this country. Um, I still believe that if you work hard and you stand for the right things and you do things the right way with a little patience and perseverance, you will make it in this country. And I really want to hit home and resonate that message because I believe in this podcast. I love what you're trying to do, and I believe in everything that this country offers. And then I'll just End with my last piece of advice. Again, I'm a half glass full kind of guy. I try and celebrate the little things in life, no matter how small they are. My mom passed away at a very early age, at the age of 56. So it
Oh.
really struck home to me and my brother, and we were very close to my mom, just how short life is and how fragile life is. So my last piece of advice is enjoy life and celebrate life's little moments.
Mm.
Life's too short to care about the small things that may take us off and might derail our entire day. If you did a good job on a project, celebrate that.
Mm.
If you get on base 3 times in a softball game, celebrate it. If your team won, if UGA wins, celebrate. Like that's huge. When the Braves won, me and my brother went to almost every game because we just didn't know when that experience might come back for us. All that to say, life is too short. Celebrate life. Celebrate small accomplishments. Definitely celebrate big accomplishments. Celebrate them with your friends and your family. Life's just it's meant to be fun, and life's a little bit more fun when you get to celebrate those things. So to tie all those things together, I mean, if any of you guys listening out there, you guys got a job in strategy consulting, hey, call me up and we'll celebrate life together.
I could not have asked for a better answer. Wow, that's really great advice, even for myself. Thank you for reminding me of so many things that I need to do, uh, just just as a stay-at-home mom, right? Like, even as you're talking about how, taking a step back in the very first piece of advice that you gave, like, of where other people are coming from,
Mhm.
that I'm like, I'm even thinking of my own children. Like, yes, I need to understand them. But yeah, I'm sorry about your mom. I think I did know this, but yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, thank you for saying that. I'm very open about it. I try and be strong for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, I don't I don't get sad on like her birthdays or anniversaries or anything. I
Uh-huh.
try and do something like positive. So, and you may have seen it on my Instagram. I'll try and like run 11.24
Yeah, you
miles,
ran.
or like I'll like on her birthday was September 18th. I'll
Mm.
do like a 9 mile, 9.18 mile ruck march, and it's pretty cool to see like some friends like when they see that they're like, dude, I'm gonna do that too. I was like, man, that's awesome. Let's go. Let's celebrate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's amazing. And I love, yes, is tomorrow is not promised to anybody. And
Hmm.
um I think it's definitely during these times get caught up in like social media and like what
Yeah.
we think we should be, or
Hmm.
things we should like or strive for, and we forget to just be faithful in the things that we currently have right now.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for
No, thank you for
tonight.
having me.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun, actually,
Good.
Blair.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, no, I had a blast. I was over here like studying my notes right before this. I was during my work hours. I was asking for advice from my boss, like, "Hey, have you ever
Oh
done a
my god.
podcast?" And he was like, "What? No." And then he was making fun of me. He's like, if you were good looking, you'd be on TV, but because you're not good looking, they asked you to be on podcasts.
No, no,
And I thought that was so funny, but that's
um
just the way we are. We just joke with each other all the time. I
yeah.
love it, but I enjoy this. I love doing this, and especially for the mission that you have to provide, I guess, new opportunities or new job avenues for your students who they might not know what they want. I think this is really cool what you're doing.
Thanks. I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me, Phil. And again, I'm just so honored by your time tonight. And and even to speak to the point where you said, you believe that if you work hard and do what's right, there are so many opportunities that you can achieve. Right?
Hmm.
It's not impossible. And I think you hit it right on the mark for me. That is my heart too, right? Like I do this because um, it is not impossible to dream big
Yep.
and go for the things that you want to go for. You mentioned you weren't Ivy League. A lot of us aren't. And I
Hmm.
think our parents expect us to be, especially if you're first gen, second gen, a Korean or Asian American, and that um does not mean a lot. If we're like, we're in our 30s now, and it's like,
Right.
we're like who cares where you go into college? You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I mean, it
Yep.
matters. Don't guys, it matters. Go to college. but,
Yes. Go to
but,
college. Yes.
but I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, whatever it is that you love and are passionate about, if you put in the work and you do the time, you take the time and do what is right. I mean, I just love that. It is totally doable.
Well
Um,
said, Blair. I love it.
yeah.
You said it so perfectly.
No.
You use like 10 words. I have to use like 50 words to
No,
say
no,
what
no.
what you just said.
But yeah, I mean, this has been wonderful. So thank you again. Hey, you guys, if you heard it here, Phil is totally open to having a chat with you if you're interested in learning more about what he does. And he's actually really just a great person to talk to and a great person to know. So I'm sure he'll be open.
Hey guys, I paid Blair to say that.
No. But if you want to get connected with Phil, please reach out to me through social media. You can DM me at my Instagram or any of my platforms, or you can email me at podcastwigdu@gmail.com. Thanks so much again, Phil. Until next time. Bye.
Thanks, Blair. Bye.